Well, thank you for joining me once again. My name is Big Sam, and of course, it feels so good to be right in your space. You're watching me from wherever you are, and I know for sure that every time we surface, there is a glimpse of learning that gets your life and you go to another level. I'm still touring United States of America, and I meet up with this wonderful gentleman. Now, who says good things don't come from Uganda and they're dispatched into all the parts of the world? In USA, you find this wonderful gentleman called Jaguar Solomon. The first time I heard about him was when I visited a Bowie University. And when I was there, they kept on talking about a man that is so creative, a man that is great in animation, and that is at one of the great universities in the United States. So I picked up interest in looking up for this man. So together with my team, we got an opportunity that at the Embassy of Uganda in Washington, he was invited because the embassy has got an adoption education program where they invite different schools from the community to come and learn the language. And bam! There is this man who has gotten the up of telling people how, or helping people how to learn the language and speak it better, and actually making these people fall in love with Uganda even when he's not in Uganda. Such passion, you know. And I was so delighted because after hearing about him, I'm now getting to meet him physically. Now, let me just play some of the clips that he has done. And, in the morning session when he's with the kids, it was marvelous. It was great. And what you're looking up at the screen right now, that's the session that we just heard. And this is so good. And you're actually literally thinking, these kids that are thousands and thousands of miles away from Uganda, they're actually learning the dialect. They are learning how to speak the language. I could hear them and I feel the passion, and little by little, these kids will even speak more Luganda than some of you who are even in Uganda, because you're now you who are in Uganda, in our schools today, they're not teaching our kids how to speak right. Actually, our children in Uganda, in our native schools, they are learning how to be American, and this is so bad. And so this is one of the things that really drew me come close to this man. So this is a moment for us to learn and see and admire, and of course push the passion that we have right here. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Solomon Jaguar. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here on the program.
It's a pleasure, man. It's the first time I heard about you, it was like, what? But I want to get it from the horse's mouth. So I want you to look straight in that camera and introduce yourself better. Who is Solomon Jaguar?
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yes.
And my name, as you heard, is Solomon Jaguar. And I have a middle name, Dawi, which is William. So Solomon William Jaguar. I was born in Masaka and grew up in Mutundwe. And I absolutely love sharing my journey of coming from Uganda to the US with everyone that I come in contact with. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is sharing our culture with the rest of the world. Yes.
Now, Solomon, it's something unique. When people leave their homeland, they don't want to do anything with their homeland. They just want to depart. Now, you come out different from Masaka, you said, all the way to the United States of America, and you cannot forget your roots. How has it been for you?
It's been a challenge. It really has been a challenge, because when I first came to the US, this was 1996. That was a time when very few Ugandans were even thinking about animation or art. And so for me to come here and start to pursue art and animation was my journey into trying to tell stories. Because I grew up in the time of Idi Amin Dada. I was in the village with my grandmother, and in the evenings we didn't have entertainment. So the only thing that I could get entertained with was my grandmother teaching me stories of Wagulu Dene, Wakaima, Wango. And that's how I got into storytelling. So when I came to the US, I always wanted to bring those stories to life. That's how I jumped into animation.
Now, I'm trying to imagine how them stories that that your parents used to tell you, and most of those times we used to do homeschooling. The parent used to be hands-on with the child, and this is what has made you become who you were, and it has grown you this far.
Absolutely, because I come from a big family. I have 8 sisters from my dad's side, and we have 4 brothers, and then I have 8 other siblings on my mom's side. And so I come from a really big family. And so for me, it was never lost on me how our parents, helped us to dig into our culture and love it. And I really attribute to my grandmother, who never gave up on telling us stories. She never gave up. And I think that's the quest that I'm on as well, especially now that the way you look at the age group of Ugandans, we, people of our age, are now the elders. Our grandparents are dying off, and they're dying off with a culture that they have been, given to the oral tradition. So I really am hoping that every Ugandan parent can take on this mantle of sharing what they've learned from their grandparents and pass it on to their children as well.
Now, Solomon, you have a very interesting journey. Growing up and being born in Uganda from Masaka, now I come to the United States, and I first heard about you at Bowie University. You were not even there, and everybody's saying there is this man from Uganda. How did you end up here?
So I'll tell you really, if I had hours and hours of him, but I have
break
to
it down. Break it down.
have to tell you a story.
Break it down. Come on.
I don't think I've ever even shared it anywhere else, in full, and I hope to one day share it. I met a lady called Hazel Collett. She was She had come to Uganda to visit. Actually, she had come to see the mountain gorillas. She had 7 more days to stay in Uganda.
She's American.
No, she's from Britain. She's a UK citizen.
Okay.
And she had a dream that she had to be on a plane out of Entebbe airport. And she didn't know why. And then on one hand, I just gotten my visa. I'd applied for a visa like 3 times, got denied. And then on the day that
a visa to
come to the US.
Yeah,
I'd gotten a scholarship to come to do fine art, because I used to paint in Uganda and also create sculptures. That's how after I finished Makerere College School in senior 6, my vacation, I would sell my paintings. That's how I paid all my paintings and sell some crafts that I did. So get to make a little bit of money during my vacation, my senior 6 vacation. So she comes and to the airport the same day that I go to the airport, and I did not know her. I had never met her, but that lady ended up paying for all my tuition until I graduated, and we've become good friends right now. And actually in Bushenyi, because her passion had always been to help children who are orphans in Uganda. That was her passion. And so as we speak, there's a school in Bushenyi called JJ Nshumi that has 900 students that are a result of that meeting, this Hazel on that plane, that just a chance meeting for us to be, and that's how I ended up in the US, going to university, because I don't think I could have afforded the tuition alone, because at the time tuition was $5,000 a semester. In 1996, $5,000 was a lot of money, So for that, I am super grateful. And Hazel, if you're watching this, thank you so much for investing in my education. Yeah.
So you end up here, and then when you arrive here, boom, into university.
Yes, because actually, so I went from Entebbe Airport to Europe, but back then it was in Europe. So Brussels, we had a layover, and I sat with Hazel. She asked me where I was headed, and I told her that I was going to go to a school in the US. And she said, well, please stay in touch with me. She gave me her phone number. And I told her that one of the things that I wanted to bring was my guitar, because I love worship. I used to play in the worship team.
Wow.
And so I love music. And so she bought me a guitar. She gave me pocket money. And that's one of the few things. So I left Uganda with one pair of pants. On the spot. I left Uganda with one pair of pants, one shirt, one backpack. I did not bring any luggage to America, because I believed that God was going to make provision once I got here.
Look at that. Look at that. Yes. Look at that.
Yeah.
And now today, you are running your own business.
Sir.
You have your family here. Yes. You are a father of
two.
Two.
A son and a daughter. Yes.
A son and a daughter. How old?
My son just turned 17 actually.
Wow.
And he just got his learner's permit. So there's a photo that I actually shared on Facebook where they were little. I homeschooled our kids. My wife homeschooled for 6 years, and then we switched out, and I homeschooled them for the next 6 years. So they've been homeschooled about 12 years. So that time when I was at home is when actually the idea of Nkoza and Nancha was birthed, because the characters that you see in Nkoza and Nancha, they're inspired by my son and daughter. Me spending time with them, learning from them, learning how to create content. Because before I was creating content, but I had no idea what made a child tick until I went to their level. And as a father, I never really appreciated what my wife did at home until I homeschooled. I was like, oh my gosh, they need to be paid thousands and thousands of dollars.
Mothers.
Yeah, mothers, they do so much at home. Yeah.
Wow, this is so interesting. And for those of you that have just joined us, I'm just having a moment with this wonderful man, Solomon W. Jaguar, who is an interesting storyteller. He is just everything you would ever want. But what catches my attention is to find such a man who is so passionate about his country, about his culture, about his roots, and that is not so common to find among his people that leave the motherland to come to the United States of America. Now, we want to talk more about Nkoza and Nancha.
Yes.
And I want you to break it down and give it to us the way. You said this was an inspiration that comes from your daughter and son. But this book is so interesting.
Yeah.
This is very, very interesting. I would love everybody to have a copy of this book, because your life is going to change and see things differently, and you're going to connect to who you are more. The few pages I've read from this book. But tell me, let's start on this book. All right.
Yeah, so this is a result of teamwork. So first I want to give credit to all the team members of Soul Studios. When I started out, it was just really me and my wife, but I want to give credit to the team, Soul Studios team, that has been able to bring this together. When I started out, I had an idea, and actually it was back in the day when I was working on Galiwango, Obulamu Bwekisode. That was the first animated film that I wanted to create to inspire young Ugandans to be able to, love their country, to love the wildlife, and to be able to conserve it. So that comic book that you're holding right there is it has at the back the names of the wild animals in Uganda and in Swahili. So my hope and my dream is that kids all around the world, especially Ugandan kids who have been brought up here in the diaspora and are disconnected from their roots in Uganda, that they get a chance to tap into at an early age, because children have a formative years when they're with us.
Yeah.
That we do our best to spend time. So my hope is that a parent can actually sit down with that comic book with their child and read together, and if they have questions, that the parent can help answer them. So that is how it began. And I love to draw, and there's a really awesome story. I went to boarding school in Makonzi.
Okay.
And it is the danger zone, but back then that's what we called it. And I remember the first thing that I learned how to draw was a horse. And there was a fellow classmate. No, actually he was 2 classes ahead of me, and he knew how to draw a horse. And I didn't know how to draw the horse. So he would ask me to pay for in my lunch. I'll give him half of my lunch every day, and he would take me to where the sand was, because Makonzi is built on a former lake bed. And that's how I used to draw. That was the early stages of me learning how to draw and be passionate about drawing animals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I surrounded my posho so I could learn how to draw.
This is so interesting, so inspiring. And I always tell people out there, you want to be great, you want to reach your goals, you want to go somewhere, but you're so reserved to whatever that you have. You can never reach your destiny. You can never reach anywhere, if you hold on to whatever that you have. Imagine, let the posho go. So the man. All right. Let's get in this book.
Yeah.
So this is a story.
Yes.
Nancha and Nkoza, they went to the village.
That's right.
You know, and when you're reading this book, it says the journey to the wildlife park begins. So, but it's the inspiration is not only in the wild park. It's life in general, right?
Yes.
Life in general.
Right.
And okay, give us a breakdown of this story.
Okay. So the idea is, I'm trying to share an experience as a parent living in the diaspora with my fellow Ugandans. So as a shared experience, because when I first created Nkoza and Nancha, it was really just for me and my wife, because my wife was like, I need something to help me while I'm raising our kids, to teach them about your language, because my wife is African American and she's born here in the US. And so she wanted something, a tool that she could use to help the kids. And I said, okay, let me start working on an app that would actually resulted into all this content that followed afterwards. And so what the kids were really fascinated about was village life. So that's how I created that story of, let me write a story about these two kids. First of all, they're in the diaspora, and then they move back to Uganda, and now they're grappling with learning how to, learn their culture, learn their languages, and that's how the whole journey begins. That their journey starts in the diaspora, they relocate to Uganda, and then Nancha is sent to the village because they didn't have the school fees to pay. And there's also the challenge of the girl child, is that usually in Uganda, the boys were given preference to go to school and the girls were either married off. So I want to share that challenge that people go through, and to show that even as a little girl, Nancha can rise up above all her means, and that as a little boy, Nkoza helps his sister to learn about everything that he learns in boarding school. So there's that sharing dynamic of, we are a community. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
So these two friends are on a journey to learn about their culture with the help of their grandfather who they meet in the village.
How has the American society received
Oh my goodness.
your vision?
Today, you've experienced a bit of it,
Yes, yes. Man, I was amazed.
Yeah, so these are kids who have no idea about Ugandan language, right? But when you package it in a fun way, in an engaging way, you saw what happened today. They were engaged. They could speak, because the way children learn is that they like the visual, they like the tactile. And I think what I've learned from homeschooling our kids is that you have to be hands-on to make it interesting. Because I remember when I was in boarding school in Budo Junior, man, they spanked us for speaking Luganda. So we grew up actually hating a language that was supposed to be, precious to us. So right now, I feel like we as parents need to change that mindset and engage our children in an exciting way. And kids love animation. They love comic books. I mean, I don't know if you did, but I grew up reading Tintin and Asterix and Obelix, you know. I mean, we dug into those with the Asterix and Obelix going against the Romans, and then Tintin with Captain Haddock going on different adventures. So that kind of grew a desire in me to, how can I use this medium to be able to tell a story both in print and also on the phone and on the tablet. I think the pandemic has been a jumping point. Beginning of 2020, we had about 800 downloads. As I speak, both our iOS, Android, and Amazon apps are over 15,000 downloads in over 150 countries. That's how far the app has been downloaded and is being used by parents all over the world. So this comic book and the app itself is just a tool. Like, if you don't have internet, if you don't have electricity, you can still learn something using the comic book and learn about the names of the wildlife in the back of the comic books. But if you have internet and you have access to a mobile phone, you can also use that tool. Because I got a video of a parent. They had gone for vacation in the village in Uganda. There was no internet, but they had downloaded the app on their phone. And their kids were learning Luganda in the village.
Wow.
So to me, that is precious, because the kids get engaged, the parents are involved, and also opens up this curiosity about Uganda. Yeah.
Now, let's also talk about the Ugandan community in the United States. Has it really helped them? I find that people come here and they lose culture. Their kids they don't want anything to do with Uganda because of what their parents went through, and how has it been with them?
So here in the diaspora, it's a major challenge because you look for resources to be able to teach your children a language, and it's difficult because most of us, when we come to the US, either you have a job that requires you to work late at night. By the time you come home, the kids are sleeping, or they're either staying with a caretaker that doesn't speak your language, So this has been helpful. And there's several conventions that I've attended. I hear the same message from parents telling me, man, this is making a big difference. And we also have a Luganda Academy here in Washington, D.C. that serves Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And so kids get together every Saturday at between 10:30. It used to be 3 p.m., but now it's between 10 and 10:30 to 12:30, about there, and for 1 hour. That's how we've actually, as families in the Ugandan community, are trying to dig into helping each other to tell the stories and learn our languages.
There is... I hear about Nabagereka Foundation. They come to do chisakarte and things like that. Have they ventured into using this? Because I think this would really, really help.
I'm actually glad you asked that, because on one of the chisakarte in Uganda, the kids were using the app.
Okay.
In Uganda. So I'm so grateful to the Nabagereka for how she has spearheaded this Ubuntu Vulamu. That's so innate in us as Ugandans, that you're raised to have good manners. Or Ubuntu Vulamu. That's how when you're addressing somebody else, you greet them humbly and kindly, and you don't, talk over your elders and things like that. It's a challenge here in the US, because if a kid is brought up here, then they go to the mall, they're going to see a kid just going off on their parent, And so those values are so important to carry on. And if we can put them in animated form, where you see a child is actually learning from the grandfather or the mother, or how to be a good citizen, a good representative, a good Ugandan wherever you are, I think it's very important. Yeah.
Now let's also talk about funding.
Yes.
You need a lot of money, a lot of resources to get this there. I mean, I don't know where you've gone through to get it where it is, but I think this is when the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Culture from my country, from Uganda, should actually jump on board, because there is someone who has got it to take it to another level. Have you gotten, in touch with the ministry? Have they come on board to get this somewhere?
So in terms of partnerships, the embassy has actually been very, very active in engaging me.
Wow.
So we've been to several schools. As the embassy adoption program, they partner with schools so they can actually, those schools can learn about Uganda. And so the previous session, I think it was a year ago, before the pandemic it made everything difficult, is that we were able to do a virtual one where each child was given a full year of a subscription to the Nkoza and Nature app. And they were also given a comic book to go along with that. So the embassy here in DC has been very, very helpful in terms of partnership. Now, when it comes to Uganda itself, I partnered with the Uganda Wildlife Authority at some point. And I think you may have seen one of the videos I played. And to help promote Uganda. And Lily Ajarova, who is right now the head of UTB, she used to be at Ngamba Island. So we've worked together to help promote the wildlife conservation. And I created a comic book for Ngamba Island. There's a little chimpanzee called Ikuru. So I'm trying to get everything, the things that I'm passionate about, like wildlife conservation and culture, to be able to work together. But I'm always welcoming any other partners that are willing to come on board. And I'm looking forward to when these comic books can actually be available in libraries, in schools, in Uganda, in every school.
Now, for those of you that have just joined us, having a moment with this wonderful young man, everything that he says is what everybody needs to hear. And if we're going to preserve our culture, if we're going to get our country to the next level, we cannot forget our roots. Definitely, it's what we need to go to another mile. I want to thank, and on a very serious note, I want to thank the Embassy of Uganda in Washington, D.C., of course, led by His Excellency, Mr. Katende, for the great job that you're doing. And I hope all the other embassies everywhere can borrow a leaf. And we have such interactions, such programs where we highlight, promote our culture to the rest of the worlds that we are in, because that's where we come from. And I've seen it right here in DC, being done at the Embassy of Uganda in Washington, and I would love to see this in all other spheres. And if we can put a budget to this is what we need, seriously. People would love, we'll go more than knowing about chimpanzees. We go more than that. And what Solomon is putting here is let people get to know how they pronounce names of fruits, names of food, get back our dialect properly. And that is what Solomon is advocating for. And having him in the diaspora, if he gets help from the government of Uganda, and we look into what he's doing and hyper it, I tell you what, have you realized, Solomon, that Indians don't change? Their culture is still intact, because everywhere you go, it's still that marriage, it's still that language. We were talking last night with Margaret, and we were talking, okay, Uganda is having yuga wood, but yuga wood is becoming like Nollywood. Right. We're copying what Nigeria is, and we're forgetting ours.
Yeah.
And for me, even the curriculum of Uganda should adopt what you have.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm proud of people like Lukman Ali.
Yeah.
He's a cinematographer, filmmaker from Uganda. Ugandans who are championing, let's create something that's so of Uganda-centric, that our kids can actually identify with that. Because you had all those questions those kids had. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you do this? Do you do that? Those are things that I am hoping that we develop a passion in our young people, because they are the future of our country. They really are. And what I've done with the app, together with my team, is that we're not just teaching Luganda. We've included Swahili, but we also want to add languages like Runyachitara, a combination of Ruchiga and Runyankore, Acholi, Luo, all the languages in Uganda, because we are so diverse. And that's what makes us such a beautiful country, is that we are the most diverse country in the world. And we have so many stories, so many folk tales that we can bring together, that we can help channel those to bring to teach our children the culture and our languages.
I was on the app today, and as my mind was refreshed by some of those songs, like Njovu yakula bulungi negeja na.
That's
I don't even know how you remember all that.
Oh man, I'm telling you, my grandmother really ingrained those things.
Thumbs up to her. Thumbs up to her, man.
It's a tribute to my grandmother, because without her, I don't think it would have stayed with me. And I think we grew up in an age where technology wasn't a big thing. So nowadays, kids struggle with being on the phone or whatever. And here's the thing. Even though I have created something for digital media, my ultimate goal is for parents to spend time with their kids. And that's why there's a print option. So that because there's something different about when you are physically there with your child and they actually hear you, speak these words, because it has to start from there. It has to start from you as a child, or rather as a parent at home, teaching your child the languages that we so treasure in Uganda.
Solomon, what has been your biggest challenges and how have you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge has been funding. That has to be, because every artist has a dream, but you need computer hardware, you need software, you need people, you need a team to be able to bring a dream to life. So it's been a difficult thing to have this huge dream, but not have the funding to be able to bring it to fruition. And I think what I've done is I've used what I've had, all along to do my best and make connections. And sometimes it's not even the funding that is most important, but the connection to that one person that's going to change your life, that who truly believes in the idea and they feel like, what, I can come on board behind that. That has been one of the biggest challenges, but also raising a family in the diaspora. It's not easy because, first of all, I miss Uganda.
We thought it's so easy, man.
I miss Katunkuma. I miss
Mokene.
I
feel you,
I
man.
miss Posho.
I feel you, man.
With the Mputa. Those things, I can't even describe them to my children because we are far removed from the motherland. And so trying to create an image that they can capture with, and that's why I'm digging deep inside my memories and as much as possible to share with them the experiences that I've had. So those are the big things that I've had to deal with. Because even my children, it's been tough for them to learn Luganda, because when you're working full time, because I've been in the gaming industry for 15 years, I worked in the defense industry where we used to create games for the US military to train soldiers in real-time strategy. But those jobs are extremely, extremely demanding, hours on end, animating, building tanks and guns and whatever. So it separates you away from your family, and that time that my grandmother used to spend with me, I didn't have the luxury of passing on the same level. So those are the biggest challenges that I've
Man, and now we have this book online. Yeah. What other books do we have?
All right, so that was the journey to the national park, but
Yes.
It all started here when Koza and Nancha went to the village the very first time.
Okay.
So this book was the first comic book that we made.
All right.
And this was illustrated by a gentleman from Uganda called Charles Sentongo. He and I have been great friends, and he's actually he's an awesome comic book artist, and he has a company called Elupe in Uganda. They do comic books, but this was the beginning part of it. And then as we were talking, my wife came up with an idea of creating a character that will become best friends with Nkoza and Nancha that are here. So that's when Princess Anitandra was born.
All right.
So there's a tree house over there that they hang out because they grew up in the same neighborhood with Nkoza and Nancha. So she's in the US, Nkoza and Nancha moved back to Uganda, and then they start to communicate. You know how we used to have pen pals?
Yeah.
Do you ever have a pen pal?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Actually,
kids nowadays don't know what a pen pal is.
In Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
But wasn't it awesome when a pen pal would send you a letter and you learn about their culture?
Yeah.
It would always be exciting to run to the post office. So waiting for your parents to come home and wondering, is there a letter for me from my pen pal? So I'm trying to get back some of those storytelling aspects of communication. I know nowadays it's texting and WhatsApp and Instagram and whatever, but there's value in kids actually seeing some of these things, that you don't have to just rely on technology to communicate. Having a friend in the neighborhood, hanging out, going, hunting, not hunting, but playing cowboys and Indians. When I was in Budo Junior School, we played Kontiki. We played rebels and soldiers, Ugandan soldiers. So we play like the rebels are attacking, Kampala or whatever. So it's things like that. Being outdoors is very important to the development of a child.
Thank you so very much. I'm so delighted. You know what? Everybody in Uganda, everybody that comes to the United States of America, they're just hustling. Yeah. They're just, doing drugs or, just doing things that they did not go to school for. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, that the first time when I was at Bowie University and they told me about you, I was like, what? Okay, so this is an inspiration to many of us that are still down in Uganda, that you can leave Uganda and still be professional. Yes. Okay, so I want you to speak to them and just give them an outline, and that will be our bye-bye.
All right, so skill set. I think it's very important as you have this dream, whichever dream that you may have as a Ugandan, because I'm always, when I talk to people online, they're asking me how I got here. I'm always encouraging them to try to use whatever you can. There was an Indian gentleman I met in Uganda. He hired me to paint a mural. It was on Kampala Road, right next to Uganda House. I don't know if it's still Uganda House. Uganda has changed so much. But he hired me to paint a mural of his shop called Photo Magic at the time. And it was a son and his dad and mom. And the gentleman was he was happy with the mural. It was a reel. It was like a canister of film coming out of a hat. Instead of a rabbit, it was the film coming out. So before that, no one knew, well, a lot of people didn't know that he was producing photos at the time. But once that mural came up, so people on Diamond Trust could see it from there, and so they would walk down and come and produce their photos here instead of Diamond Trust. So he was very happy. So one day he sat me down and asked me, do you want to learn computers? And at that time, I had no idea how to even use computer graphics or Photoshop. And he said, but I'm not going to pay you. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm in my senior 6 vacation. He said, I'm not going to pay you, but I'm going to give you money for lunch and the taxi. And he said, you think about it. So there I was with all this paint all over me. I sat in that Matatu all the way to Mutundwe thinking, man, this gentleman is trying to take advantage of me.
Yeah.
You know, but the next morning, when I went back to that shop, I said, I'll take the offer. And he said, okay. So in the evening, I would lug the things that he was selling. He used to sell these APCs along Kampala Road. So we'll go to offices. I carry those things through the different offices. We sell. And then we go back. We go to the bank, deposit money. And then in the evenings, he would sit me down and teach me computer graphics. No salary whatsoever. So for 6 months, I did industrial training of learning how to use computer graphics. When I came to the US with that, when I got that scholarship, once I started school, I was actually ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve. I was blessed to have a professor that saw the potential that I had, that I actually missed some of my classes because I didn't have. She would say, can you help me with the instruction of my fellow students? So what you heard from Bowie State University set off way back when I was at George Mason University. And I attended Ohio Valley University. From there, they didn't have animation. I transferred to Montgomery College over here in Rockville, which is a state bordering DC and Virginia. And then from there, I went to George Mason University. Now, what happens in the US is that if you are hired, I did a 2-year internship with the Defense Department. It was a defense contractor attached to the Pentagon that then hired me once I graduated. Mm-hmm. And I worked for that company for 8 years as an animator and 3D artist. But it all started with how much are you willing to invest in your own self? Are you willing to sacrifice to learn something, even if someone doesn't pay you? Do you love that thing so much that you're willing to do it without someone paying you?
Wow.
And that's what led me to this where I am right now. But I've always loved drawing. So whatever it is that you have as a passion of yours inside, draw on that and let that be your guiding compass that this is something that I want to do forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, thank you.
Thank you so much.
What are you willing to do that no money, you can still do it? Yeah. Without being paid, you can still do it. That's exactly a line that I'm picking from Solomon. Thank you very much for joining us. Catch you again next time.